it's time for a restaurant-worthy dessert, warm maple almond chiffon cakes. And these are flourless cakes. And being a restaurant dessert, we'll serve them plated with a sauce. And I'll start with a chocolate ganache. Now I have half a cup of whipping cream that I heated just to a simmer. And then I'm pouring it over 4 ounces of chopped or chocolate chips. You have to make sure you're using baking chocolate. Oh, it smells divine. But I'll set it aside and we can get those warm maple chiffons going. Just like the lemon chiffon, 4 egg whites. So first I'll whip these until they're foamy. I don't need cream of tartar in the egg whites this time because I'm going to actually heat and cook maple syrup because that's what's lending it the structure. I've got half a cup of pure maple syrup here in my pot, and I've got a candy thermometer here because I want to cook it to a precise temperature, and that's 240. In the bakery world, that's known as softball stage. Once that maple syrup were to cool, you could actually pick it up with your fingers and roll it into a soft ball shape. There we go. Carefully take it over. So you want to whip it on a lower speed, but pour the syrup down the side of the bowl. That way it goes right to the bottom and gets picked up by the whisk without splashing any of the hot maple syrup around. This time, I want my whites whipped to a stiff peak, so they stand straight up when you lift your beaters. And that is because there's no flour in this recipe. I need all the strength I can get when the chiffon cakes go in the oven. So just whipping the maple syrup with the egg whites cools it right down. It's warm to the touch, but it's certainly not hot now. I saved 3 of the yolks from the whites I separated, and to this I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of light brown sugar. So this 1/4 cup of vegetable oil and the 3 yolks are the only fat you're adding to this recipe. So even though the cake is rather rich, you have to consider the fact it's actually quite low in fat. The last thing to add, little splash of vanilla extract. These ingredients I'll whip just like I did with the lemon chiffon cakes to get some air and to also dissolve the sugar into the egg yolks and the oil. Got that nice thick consistency and pale color, just like in the lemon chiffons. This is a flourless dessert, but you do need to replace flour with something that gives it structure. In this case, I'm using a full cup of ground almonds. Sometimes you see it called almond flour, but these are raw, unseasoned, unsalted almonds, just ground up. And so I like to use untoasted almonds because that actually absorbs some of the moisture in the cake, helping it rise up. And this is tapioca starch, and that helps replace the need for flour in the recipe. And this takes 3 tablespoons. And just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Ground almonds are hard to sift. They don't quite fit through the sifter, but because there's no gluten, they don't clump up or cling together, so you still end up with a fine batter. But now, of course, we're gonna lighten it with these very stable and strong egg whites. And there really is a sort of trick to folding things in. You wanna fold first in thirds, and then use a tool. In this case, I'm using a bowl scraper. So you can really feel what you're doing. And you work right through to the bottom of the bowl. And the real tip is to actually work faster and more vigorously than too slow and deliberate, because time is the enemy when it comes to egg whites. And when I do the first fold, I don't fold it fully because I have another opportunity to add the remaining 2/3 that I fold all at once. So when you're making an individual dessert, you can get a little creative because now we've got that confidence. Used the tube pan for the angel food cake, played with the cupcake tins for the mini lemon chiffon cakes, but now for a little curve to your individual desserts, oven-proof coffee cups. So I pour it in to about halfway. So the oven temperature is the same as the other chiffon cakes I've baked, 325. Takes about 25 to 30 minutes. Here we go. Now these cakes are still warm. They came out of the oven about 15 minutes ago, did the spring test, and they sprung back when I pressed them. I want to serve the dessert warm, so I let these set. You have to let them set for at least 15 minutes, just so all the ingredients settle into their place and it'll turn out of the dish. But what I want to do is tip it out on the marble first and then put it onto my dessert plate. Look at that beautiful, warm, flourless maple almond chiffon cake. little dusting of icing sugar, and then of course, that chocolate ganache, which is still warm, and I just do a little pool on the plate. Now that's a stunning dessert, and so tender and light, as a chiffon cake should be. You'd never guess it was a flourless cake.